Hello and welcome back to another edition of Jump to It for IrishRacing.com, where in today's show we're going to be previewing 6 races from the action at Newcastle and Newbury. Now joining me to discuss all of the big races as well as some of the big talking points and deliver their expert tips, I have Ed Quigley and Stephen Harris. Ed, I'll start with you. Protectorat last week. What a shout that was.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? It kind of went to plan, really. I mean, Dan Scout is saying he had him absolutely tuned for the minute first time out on rain-softened ground, and it kind of showed, didn't it? There was, I think, likes of Bristol Demai, perhaps a bit over the hill. Eldorado Allen ran with credit. Frodon ground probably a bit soft, and race came a bit quick after Wincanton, and then obviously a lot of eyes on Aplutard, who failed to fire. Now, instinctively, I thought perhaps first time out, soft ground, it caught him out, but seems to be a bit more of a worry in the Bromhead camp going further forward, doesn't there? They couldn't really. I always like an excuse when something's gone wrong, but the Bromhead team would come out and say they can't really put their finger on what went wrong. He was beaten after 2 fences, so clearly a full MOT there and something that's just niggling away at Plutard, who as a consequence is out as big as 12-1 to retain his crown at Cheltenham in March. Now the same price, incidentally, that Protectorat is now to win at Cheltenham in March. Very quickly go forward to the festival in 4 months' time. If we did get a softer heavy ground Gold Cup, I would bring Protectorat into it. I think he's a relentless galloper, and he's probably only had one more run maximum between now and the festival, and he does have an excellent record fresh. So yeah, it's in a way it's thrown up more questions than it has answers, that race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought a big talking point, of course, as well was the ground at Ascot, the horses that were withdrawn. So Stephen, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Is it just a freak occurrence?
Well, my thoughts are probably not broadcastable, to be honest. I thought the whole thing was absolutely disgraceful. I mean, it's been well documented and one can understand these things, but we've been led up the garden path so many times by Nicky Henderson with a variety of horses over the last few years. Since that race against Surname at Ascot in really bad ground a few years ago, it's sort of made him become sort of Henrietta Knight times 10, hasn't it? That just doesn't really want to run these top class horses. I mean, we're going to come to Newcastle this weekend in a minute, which, by the way, is good to soft at the moment. The same or similar description that we had at Ascot last weekend. They've got no great rain forecast as far as I can see. They've already started watering it. I'm getting a funny case of deja vu, Joe, to be honest.
Well, as things stand, as we do have Constitution Hill running in the fighting fifth, so we're going to go ahead, be kind of positive, hopefully, that he does run. So we will start off with the fighting fifth, so the 210 at Newcastle, our preview. And I think basically we just have to repeat what we said last week about Constitution Hill, don't we? Start with you, Ed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, look, on figures, miles clear, one of the most exciting horses in training. That we shouldn't be rude. You could probably argue that Epatante in receipt £7 probably offers more of a challenge than any of last week's field did. I think that'd be my view anyway. She's a previous champion hurdle winner, a Grade 1 winner. Has obviously won this race before. Let's say getting the mayor's allowance at least brings her into it to some extent, doesn't it? But look, if Constitution Hill's wound up, he'll win. Voix de Rêve not good enough. Tommy's Oscar, they seem to have shelved the chasing campaign. Look, we know he loves it here. But again, I think he wants proper deep ground. He's probably not going to get unusually this time of the year. As we say, Stephen alluded to. I mean, I'm in the Cotswolds and, every field is flooded. Yet, unbelievably, the majority of the rain seems to have missed Newcastle racecourse by about 5 miles. And, yeah, they're having to water it. It's just amazing. We're just different areas of the country getting different amounts of rain. And as you say, that would rule Tommy's Oscar out, in my view. Not so sleepy. Rising 11, not good enough. And look, Constitution Hill should jump round, should win, and then go for either the Kempton Christmas Hurdle or Stephen's favourite race of the year, the televised Newbury Gallop in February.
So Stephen, let's get your views on it as well. Do you share that view that Epatante is a more difficult opponent for Constitution Hill this time?
Not really. I suspect that there's no way in the world that Epatante will be absolutely gunned to try and beat Constitution Hill. I think when Constitution Hill won the Supreme, it was good ground. I mean, the timing clock was outrageous, and it was definitely good. I mean, they called it good soft at Cheltenham. They call it good soft at Cheltenham, whatever it is, to be honest. So the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. And of course, Henderson the whole industry no service at all by talking about wounding the horse for a year and things. Hopefully that's all been quietly brushed under the carpet, because that was pretty outrageous. But I mean, Constitution Hill does look like the next real deal. Let's talk about the horses. Let's let him run. Not So Sleepy will lead. He'll sit second. Epitante will be getting an educational sighter for future targets, and I expect Constitution Hill to sort of take over well before the last and power clear and come home alone. He's the most exciting prospect we've had since Sprinter Sacra. Let's hope he comes out and shows us exactly what he's made of.
Now, just looking at potential value in this race, I mean, would you ever look at the distance or the winning distance, betting on that?
Well, maybe. I mean, it's not easy to get on, to be absolutely truthful with you. I mean, the exchanges sometimes put up winning margin distances. I mean, the trouble is you're in the hands, unless you actually know. A lot of these jockeys are prone to ease down once the race is won. So it has become a random spectacle. Back in the day, Joe, if we've got time for a very quick story, there was much skullduggery in the distance markets. I used to work for the leading spread betting firm, and back in the day, certain people knew what was going to happen when these long odds on favourites were running, and they used to ease down and win cheekily by a neck or a head, hard on the bridle, and there was lots of business done back in the day. But no, Constitution Hill is a relentless galloper. He'll get a really good pace to aim at, in my opinion, with Not So Sleepy in the race, and he'll power away from them. I suspect De Boinville will ride him out just to make sure he's 100% an A1.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, let's move on to the next race. Of course, last week as well, there's another big admission from the programme, L'Homme Presse. Ed, just take us through your thoughts on how this race will shape up at Newcastle. And obviously L'Homme Presse, the favourite for the race, but what do you think of his chances?
I'd be against him. I've seen 11-8, or 6-4 you can get in a couple of places. Well, just all the vibes are wrong, aren't they? It's the same thing. The owner's on again this week saying he will definitely need the run first time out. His best form has come on a real soft surface. We'll say they're having to water it to maintain good to soft. But off a mark of 164, you're kind of getting into the old Denman Hennessy days, aren't you, in terms of handicap weight carrying performances. All in all, I just think he's making the market. L'Homme Presse, no doubt, is in a different stratosphere to these horses when he's at his peak. But I get the feeling he'll be peaking for one day, and that's in March at Prestbury Park. So I think there's loads of value in against him. What it is, I don't really know. I'm probably going to lay L'Homme Presse. That's probably going to be my angle in here. I right, so obviously I'm beating at the track. Won the race last year, just £6 higher. It's hard to see him come out the frame. Dingo Dollar loves it here. I think Happy Go Lucky is fully wound up. Kim Bailey's had a couple of winners after a quiet spell in the last week. He'll have no problem with his trip, track and ground. I think there's enough juice in here to be taking the rest of the field at 4-6 against him personally. So all in all, not a strong view, but I'm against L'Homme Presse on this occasion.
I know, Stephen, you're also possibly against L'Homme Presse here, but you actually have found some value. Just take us through your selection.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I mean, there is the possibility that it's very hard to assess these sort of high-class sort of novices going into handicaps with lumps of weight. It's not something L'Homme Presse has tried before. And as Ed has said, I think L'Homme Presse does really want soft ground like nearly all of Venetia's. I mean, the positives for L'Homme Presse are it's definitely much better left-handed. Jumps out to the left, so a left-handed track's ideal. And looking down them, L'Homme Presse is basically a front runner, usually ridden forwards anyway. I can't really see that many obvious front runners to take him on. So Newcastle is a blinding track to make the running on. You get against that far rail, if you get into a rhythm on the lead, he could be hard to catch. But I do agree instinctively, 6-4 in a race like this, 12 stone, first time out, even with Venetia now in top form. She's had 4 winners in the last 14 days. They are all now flying, as they always are at this time of year. I thought that perhaps Dingo Dollar could get dragged in from off the strong pace that L'Homme Presse sets. So he's a veteran, he's 10. He's not always backed up his runs, but he did really well to win at Aintree first time out in a strongly run handicap. He came from miles back, charged home. There's no fluke about it. He should give his running again. The trip is a bit of a concern. He stays extreme distances, so 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs round here could find him out in the early stages, but I expect they'll put lots of water on the track. I think he's probably a good each-way alternative to the short-price favourite.
Lovely stuff. Well, of course, we'll get to your in-depth tips later on in the show, but let's move on now over to Newbury. So we're going to go for a listed mares race. Excuse me. So the 12:15. Ed, take us through this one. You've got the favourite for the festival, right?
Yeah, you got the joint favourite for the Mayor's Novices at the Cheltenham Festival. Lucia is your 2-1 market leader here for Nikki Henderson and Sean Bowen. And I mean, she looked pretty impressive, didn't she? In both the starts last year, demolished the field in a Warwick bumper. They went to that Sandown race just before the Cheltenham Festival. One doing handstands. I think it was 17 lengths in the end. Again, though, but harping on like a boring kind of weather broadcaster. We've got good ground at Newbury. Nikki Henderson. I'm not. I say this is evens each of two. She lines up. Nikki Henderson's giving it all the. She needs soft ground. Wants to get a toe in all the pre-season bulletins. Well, I will just for the fun on Twitter, Joe. If Constitution Hill and Lucia don't line up on Saturday, it'll be worth just spending an hour of your time on Twitter for the absolute pandemonium. But look, I don't know what to make of this because I think Lucia may not run on the assumption she does. The evidence we've seen and what the train's suggesting is she would like ground much softer. All in all, I think this is a totally confusing race, but it will have a fairly big bearing on how things play out throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, if Lucia could come here on a sound surface and absolutely wipe the field with them in the manner she did in that listed bumper, then yeah, I think bookmakers will be tripping over themselves to cut her to a very short price for the festival. So yeah, all in all, a bit of a no-bet race, but one I'm going to be keeping a close eye on.
That's it, absolutely. Yeah, one for the notebooks for sure. Stephen, for you, any strong view on the race?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Lucia is one of their brighter prospects, highly regarded, etc., etc. But you read back the form of that Sandown bumper. I know she came home alone by 17 lengths, but the horse of Willie Mullins, who finished second, Eba Grace, has been beaten 3 times since, including on hurdling debut. Fairy Gem, I actually backed myself last time. That was really disappointing for Harry Fry. So that one's had 2 defeats over hurdles since. The fourth Mullenbeg's been winning low-grade handicaps. The form isn't any good. I mean, you can't crab a horse who's won by 17 lengths, but now she's got a bit to prove. It's different ground completely, hurdling. I thought Letterstone Lady, who was absolute stable nap when she won on hurdling debut at Worcester last month, really, really impressively. Now, again, that wasn't against a great deal, but she's extremely highly regarded. She's 8-1. I think she's a really good alternative to the favourite.
Lovely stuff. All right, let's move on to the next race on the card as well. The appearance of Time Hill might be quite interesting. But Stephen, one of your 10 to follow is in this race. So take us through your thoughts on Jelena Bello against Time Hill.
Yeah, I thought Jelena Bello was very taking, did lots wrong on her chasing debut at Wetherby last month. She only won by half a length from the outsider of 3 Lockberg Rocco. But she took a while to warm up. She was very free initially. She jumped with scope in the main, and she was just ridden to do just enough to win. I think she's got, on good ground, I think she'll have more speed than Time Hill. Now, we're guessing, aren't we? But it looks like Newbury. It's good at the moment. I can't see much rain in the forecast. So, I can imagine it being a test of speed, relatively speaking, in a small field. Time Hill is a very likeable horse of Philip Hobbs, but over hurdles could make a mistake and could get tapped for a bit of pace. And I think that Jelena Bello, with Cobden riding absolutely brilliantly, might be able to do Time Hill for speed.
And Ed, for you?
Yeah, a bit of a muddling one. Obviously, on raw hurdling ability, Time Hill has a quite a bit in hand here over, well, at least Jelena Bello, including Fabulous as well. And I didn't quite know what to make of Time Hill's chase debut. Like, in the end, it was a pretty emphatic win, wasn't it? But it was a 3-runner race. Pressure Luck pulled up, and Flash Colons ran in fits and spurts, and Time Hill made all in all, got round okay without being really challenged. Now, you've got a small field here, but you've got a higher class small field. I wouldn't want to take any short prices about Time Hill, but, he's around even money. At the same time, wouldn't be shocked if he won. All in all, I'm being absolute splinters in my backside at the moment with a few of these races, but I generally do think they are pretty tricky to call. You've got a grade 1 established staying winning hurdler he's a bit late to the chasing game as well. That's something else we should point out with Time Hill. He had that extra season over hurdles. He's trying to make up into a stayer's hurdle horse, whereas Jelena Bello, lightly raced and proved he's 6-year-old for the Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden team. Incidentally, we saw that stat, Harry Cobden, who's already brought up half a century for the season. He's had 25 winners in 24 days. When you say, do you have your one a day? Well, with Harry Cobden at the moment, it's all going very easily, isn't it? It's scintillating form that team are in. I was at Hereford on Thursday. They fired in another winner there. I mean, Nicholls just placing these horses perfectly. And All in all, I think Gelino Bello will rough up Time Hill, probably give the edge to Time Hill. But again, I think this will be a bit of a note-taking brief with the future.
Lovely stuff. Maybe a more competitive race, or obviously the last race is very competitive, but the next race we're going to talk about is the 120. So yeah, Ed, take us through your thoughts on this. We've got a really interesting contest ahead of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's Mr. Nichols and Cobden again with Cap Course. Obviously won the race last year, as Paul Nichols alluded to. He said he's incredibly fragile. He's got a lot of talent, this 9-year-old, but keeping in one piece is the trickiest thing to do. But look, phenomenal record at this track, as he won twice here from 3 starts. They got the job done 12 months ago. Problem is, like, the market's not really missed him, has it? If you see what I'm saying. I mean, I think he opened around 10s this time last year, and in the end went off 13-2. This time he's been installed as the default favourite, and I think he's off a £6 or £7 higher mark. So all in all, he's got more on his plate this time round. One in here I thought was not without a shout was Java Point for the Tom Scudamore team, just on the basis that this horse will love the ground and loves Newbury, to be honest with you. Good ground, Newbury, ticking all the right boxes. A horse who's been in blinding form in progressive as well, won his last 2. If he's fully revved up, I wouldn't rule out a big run from him. It's worth noting as well, the Tom George team, after being in the doldrums for a while, have actually they're operating at a 37% strike rate for November. That yard really seemed to have turned the corner. So I wouldn't be shocked if Java Point at a double-figure price ran a big race. I
know, Stephen, as well, you've got a long shot in here, so take us through your thoughts.
Well, actually, this is my nap, actually, Joe, the weekend. Killer Kane down the bottom. I think he's got an outstanding chance. Jotis are going really well. 3 winners in the last 14 days. He's a very progressive horse, needs decent ground. He's going to get it at Newbury. He ran really well in a pretty hot race first time out at Exeter recently, weakening out things after the last, having jumped and travelled into things quite strongly. I think that form's pretty good. One of the horses who was placed in it has come out and run well this week. I thought the favourite was very vulnerable here, Cap Course. He is 9. I mean, he's been off a long time. I know he won the race last year, fresh. But he's one of those horses, I suspect, it looks better on paper than it might be in reality. I think he's been very hard to train. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he was much, much bigger than the current price. He could be one of those horses who's been priced up but by compilers looking at the paper rather than anything else. I didn't really fancy him. I don't fancy the top one. Kitty's Light on good ground. That one won't be able to go the gallop. Captain Ord's going to need another couple of runs, come down a few more pounds. I thought the danger might be Mr. Coffee Fresh first time out. A frustrating horse, but he's quite well treated now on the pick of his form, and he might be the danger. But I think Killer Kane, around about 5-1. I think this might be one of those races is not quite as competitive as the numbers suggest.
Lovely stuff. Okay, let's move on to the final race we're going to cover on today's show. So this is the 305, the Coral Gold Cup, as it's known now at Newbury. So yeah, Ed, take us through your thoughts on this. We've got Coric Rambler, of course, winner of the Cheltenham Festival.
Yeah, absolutely. A very competitive betting heat. We've got the 16 due to go to post, and there's more or less 4, even 5 horses vying for favouritism here. 7-1 the field. You say Coric Rambler produced that Pegasus-like performance, didn't he, to win the Ultimate at the Cheltenham Festival, coming from about 10th to 1st in the space of turning into the home straight. Reproducing these tactics here might be hard once again. You could argue maybe he's a little bit of a hostage for fortune if he's going to be ridden very cold. There could be a bit of carnage up ahead. Look, you can make a case for loads of them. The one I made a case for on our jump special show we did, Joe, and I've been banging on about for ages for this race, is Oscar Elite for the Joe Tizard team. Harry Cobden's been booked to ride off 139. This horse is dangerously well treated. I always like those horses. Generally speaking, a second season novice, and also I love the horses who, on their peak hurdle form, look well treated. And this horse was placed in the Albert Bartlett, was placed in the Grade 1 entry over hurdles. Things haven't always quite clicked for him over fences, it has to be said, and that's reflected by the fact he's still a maiden, but he's run some stormy races, including behind the aforementioned Coric Rambler at the Cheltenham Festival when he finished 3rd, beaten just under 3 lengths. Well, I think he gets a £6 pull at the weights for that, and I also think the makeup of this race will probably suit a bit better. I think Oscar Elite will gallop off in front. Tizards are in good form. Ground comes alike to him. He's one on heavy over hurdles. He's got good form on spring ground. So all in all, I think Oscar Elite is going to be absolutely bang down. Just a final point on Oscar Elite. I do know trainers are creatures of habit. Obviously, Joe's taken over the ranks from Colin now. But back in the day, Native River won this race back in 2016. Well, they did the identical prep coming into it, didn't they? In the fact that they sent Native River back over hurdles and he ran in the West Yorkshire hurdle. And I thought he ran a similar race, funnily enough, to what Oscar Elite did, who was sent back over hurdles to run in the West Yorkshire hurdle. A, it gets the horse fit, but B, it protects the chase mark. And I think all in all, he's going to run a stormer here. Say Harry Cobden riding out of his skin at the moment. He's in the saddle. 10 stone 7 for this lightly raced 7-year-old. Yeah, I'd be disappointed Oscar Elite was out of the frame, and as Stephen always says, check your each way concessions. Hopefully we get the 16 go to post, and there's some nice each way terms there as well. But yeah, Oscar Elite for me, Joe.
Very convincing line. I like that. Stephen, any thoughts for you?
Yeah, I think this is a really good race to have a bet in at the moment. I mean, 16 runners. I have got a little bit of 11 to 10 to go. Let's all 16 turn up if anyone wants a bet. But let's hope they do. There's a lot of rags that are very hard to fancy in this. There's a lot of horses who want softer ground, like Corrick Rambler. And, you know, you're looking at good ground at Newbury, tight ground. I can't imagine he'll be quick enough on this sort of surface. 3 under through 5 got beaten a hurdle at Weatherby by Prashima. OK, it might have just been a pipe opener for this, but still had a hard enough race there fairly recently. Back over fences here. I don't really fancy him at 7 to 1 either at the prices. I thought Our Power, who seems to be quite a big drifter. He's out to sort of 12 or 14 to 1. My only negative or possible negative is they fitted him with a first-time tongue tie, which it never in my mind would have crossed my mind that he had any sort of breathing issue. The way he's finished his races, he's really tough and progressive. I like the way he won at Ascot. Danny Kerwin looked to put that race to bed for Ed, turning for home, and Our Power picked up really strongly to run him down up the straight. He is now up into the 140s. He's up to a career high mark, but there should be more to come. He's only run 7 times over fences, and I think the long Newbury straight will probably suit him even more than Ascot did, which is relatively sharp. I think he should be still improving. Sam Twiston-Davies is up. There's loads of positive. He's fitting well, open to more. It's just that tongue tie that stops me being sort of maximum confidence. But I think 4 places, he's a belting each way bet.
Lovely stuff. All right, speaking of bets then, let's go through your tips of the week. Stephen, we'll start with you, please.
Yeah, 120 at Newbury, the betting expert. Now, Killer Kane, getting weight all round, progressive, should be fitter for his seasonal reappearance at Exeter in what I think was a strong race. I think he's bound to go well. He's a really good traveller on decent ground. I remember him winning at Kempton. He absolutely tanked round, and I think he'll tank round Newbury. In the 230 at Newbury, one we haven't mentioned, at the betting expert value angle selection, Teddy Blue, another inform yard. Gary Moore, he's had a handful of winners in the past week, all well backed. Teddy Blue is a hard puller. He needs settling. He flew round Fontwell the other day in a nothing race, but he's now into a red-hot handicap, and I think it'll really suit him. He'll settle for the first time. Decent ground ideal. Just at the back of my mind, I'm wondering if he'll see out the trip up the long Newbury straight, but I'm pretty hopeful he will. And he looks a fair price, around 6 to 1. He's open to loads more improvement. And over at Newcastle, the long shot Dingo Dollar, I'm hoping will be double figures. To be honest, you might be better waiting because I think he'll be outpaced out the back. So he might be a double figure and more on the exchanges. But hopefully he'll be able to reel in L'Homme Presse up the Newcastle straight.
Lovely stuff. Well, best of luck to you, Stephen. And Ed, take us through your selections, please.
Yep, we're going for Nap. Now we're going to Walking on Air at Newbury. There's a little bit more hype than there is substance to this horse so far, but I'm buying the hype. I mean, he looked absolutely devastating when he went on hurdling debut. He then picked up a little injury, had to miss Cheltenham, came back in 8th in that Grade 1, found it all just happening too much too soon, bit of a baptism of fire. He's in a handicap here off 132. Well, something seems wrong with that in the sense that if you believe the Nicky Henderson stable tour quotes, you know, they're talking up there's a chance he could end up in the Stayers hurdle. Well, off 132, he's the best handicapped horse in the history of horse racing, isn't he? I mean, this is time to test the mettle with this individual. But if just that, the way he won here, Joe, on his penultimate start, the manner in which he did it, you just thought, wow, this is a serious horse. I would be shocked if he's not better than 132, put it that way. He may not be up to Grade 1 level in time, but anyway, he will do for me. The value call, I still think Oscar Elite, as I've said, he's the one I've been harping on about for a long time for this. He's got the right profile. He's a prominent runner. He's a slightly raced 7-year-old. His form's working out well. He's got a nice pull at the weights with Corrick Rambler. Harry Cobden been booked to ride. He's the most informed jockey on planet Earth at the moment. So there's a lot of ticks in the right boxes for Oscar Elite as an 8-1 poke. And then, the long shot, if you can get double figures about Java Point, I think that probably underestimates his chances. He arrives on a hat-trick. The Tom George team have really hit form. He's a winner at Newbury. He likes good ground. And incidentally, the Tom George team have actually got a good record in this race. They've won it a couple of times in the past, so might be one they always try to target. So all in all, Java Point, a double-figure price was my each-way long shot.
Lovely stuff. Well, best of luck to you, chaps. Thanks a lot for your views on the races for this weekend. We'll be back next week for more Jump to It from irishracing.com. As always, please do gamble responsibly and subscribe if you like the content. We'll see you soon.